Shirley here with Jupiter point with Moon point of Thales, Sirius Moon. This is the Jupiter hour, Sol day and midheaven, 9 degrees Leo. The Moon is next to Aldebaran in the 8th house, ruled by this 10th house Mercury in Leo, and the Sun in Leo. Mars rule descendant. Let's talk about Palantir. So, without further ado, I have two charts here: Alex Karp and Peter Thiel. I'll begin with Alex Karp because that's the lesser known chart. And Palantir is basically a tech company that is doing the technology that is used for Mkultra targeted individuals. One famous target individual, which chart I'm also going to bring here, particularly with the synastry with Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, is Navotop Mark Rutte. Because he's one of the main targeted individuals, and I'm going to try to use these two charts to see how do they target Mark Rutte, and using that technology. And this is also the experience of many targeted individuals around the world, whether it's the Palestinians in Gaza, people in Ukraine and Russia, business people like Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and many people that are affected by the work of Palantir, which is basically a top tech and surveillance company that is selling its services supposedly to the military, but also to the government. And they have an aspiration to own the entire world. That's theirs. Okay, that's something that I won't address on an ideological level. I just want to show what are the things that these two charts could target in a certain chart, and how these technologies have an impact on the common person as much as any top military person that is supposed to be coming in interface. Today it is Mark Rutte. It was Jan Stolberg before that. And any person who would take up a military alliance position, a presidential position, how that can be used also to target and assassinate politically prime ministers, presidents, and common citizens. So, for those of you who are invested in Palantir, this is a reality check that is always important to have on investments. So, one. First chart is Alex Karp as one of the two founders of Palantir, and we have nice stellium in Virgo, but all of the people are born in 67, by the way. Pluto, Uranus, and the Moon in Virgo. Moon on the 22 lot of fortune of Netherlands 1800 chart, and this is where it gets risky for Mark Rutte, because this is the assassination lot of fortune of Netherlands, and that person has the Moon on the 22nd degree, creating and activating. Is not to blame, okay, that's his birthday, he couldn't, it's not something he did on purpose for that, but is creating an activation of the assassination lot and true crime lot of the chart of Netherlands. Rao 27 degrees, so Rao here is 27 degrees Aries. Rao here is adjacent to the Rao of NATO. By that, it gives this person an advantage when it comes to developing technologies for military alliance. So this is the astrological privilege, okay? Because a person with a chart that has better synastry with NATO, that also has a Rao in Aries, okay, around that degree. By the way, conjoining my Mercury and conjoining Mark's Moon. So this is a composition that allows him to have an unfair astrological advantage, because his path and NATO's path are similar. So if they create alliance, they can market NATO their technologies, with the good, the bad, and the challenging around that. A lot of fortune, 22 Cancer, again with the Moon in 22 Virgo. A lot on the 22, it means that the technology, Mercury, Virgo, will be used here for assassination. Simply put, They don't play pretend about that. And the Mercury in Scorpio, 3 degrees Scorpio. So this is actually a place that is useful, okay, to see deeply and to target, basically to target an individual. That's what it's used for. Mars 15 degrees Sag, and a Neptune with, oh, this is not Lot of Fortune. It's Neptune 22 degrees Scorpio. So Neptune here is the reason that Palantair is having that technology, because Neptune is the outer planet. Let's say you are starting a high-tech company. You want to understand what are your own natal chart's outer planets doing, because this is where you can apply to the masses. And here is to do with military, surveillance, and assassination. So stealth assassination techniques. We do not have an ascendant. Jupiter here is in 27 degrees Leo, Sun 8 degrees Libra, Sun opposing Saturn. Okay, Sun opposition Saturn, very challenging to live with. But this is where Mr. Karp can have curses on his eyesight, heart health, paternal lineage, and kidneys. So this means that the technology is affiliated with those things. Okay, we talk about BCI, spine through the eyeballs of somebody, and it has to do with consciousness or hacking into consciousness. Now here is where the things get risky for current NATO top. Okay, and this is Chiron 27 degree Pisces. So what it means for, let's say the common listener is now the head of a military alliance. Okay, one of the big tech companies that is used to surveil, target, and assassin. One of their founders is having their wounded healer point on your Saturn, and you're a night chart having a Saturn return. Okay, Saturn's going to go all the way to that degree and then back. So that means that they bring a wound to the times where you have a Saturn return. It can also be a place where you can curate something. For example, a person in that military position has been targeted individual all their lives, since they were a couple of cells in a lab or a womb. And that can be a situation where it's next to my ascendant, so maybe I'm the one that's connecting the dots. That, hey, that is the technology that used to do that. That is the technology that is used, and that can be the wound and the healing together. Now this technology is using is eye related, and the moon here has to do with the psychological abuse through the nervous system. So it's nervous system hacking. Okay, 22 Virgo. What is hacked is the nervous system, and to create a psychological, to unnerve someone psychologically. So Saturn rules bone marrow, the implications of our actions, bureaucracy, Jupiter in Pisces. So Jupiter is ruling over worldview. And before I'll touch again on the targeted, okay, that is right now Mkultra, I'm going to touch on the other chart. So yes, if you have a Saturn return, okay, which means this is a time where in general things are difficult. It's kind of like having the final test of the dissertation, or having something that test your competence because it wants to give you more responsibility, and dealing with the implications of what you've been doing so far. Okay? For example, I've been tending to ritual abuse, targeted individuals, the witchcraft that they do, the technology that they use, and I was like, Palantair, Palantair, Palantair. Oh, that's a BCI. That's the technology that proves Mkultra. Basically, for Palantir to expose their data on the level of frequency, they will be able to be the proof in Mkultra lawsuits that are not only by the common people, but actually by business people, by the very people that were targeted individuals and had to cooperate with that system. And in those rituals, people have to be both perpetrators and victims. Now let's go to Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, and again we have the Neptune on the 22nd degree of Scorpio, double times the Neptune 22 Scorpio. Again, stealth technology, stealth surveillance, occultism, 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 witchcraft. Okay, mafia, drugs, surveillance. Assassination 22 degree is assassination degree. Medicine, use of medicine to assassinate. So that can also be biohacking. Okay, there's something very biological about Scorpio. It's the growing cells, and that can be biohacking. Now, for those of you who are thinking, "Oh my God, this is terrible what they do, the democide, the this and that," yes, absolutely. Before they do that to the common people, they do that to themselves, and this is one of the things that we would see targeted in literally every business people. Okay, the business elite, the oligarchs that control our countries, and so on, in the so-called democracy. So that's interesting for the people. Hey, these people are targeted too. Yeah, come on, let's see what's happening. Because that is what a lot of targeted individuals are experiencing, and also because creating the division between the people and the representative is something that is essential to democide. Okay, it's another form of division, which is an artificial one. The targeted American individual and the target Palestinian individual are not necessarily all that distinct. Now here, Peter Thiel, again, Pluto, Uranus, and the Saturn. So the Saturn here is that, and that's an ouchie that I can relate to because it's also my Lilith. Saturn and Alex Karp's Saturn, both of them strike on Mark Rutte. You won't see it in that chart, but Mark Rutte's Lilith and Aries. This is beyond an ouchie for a night chart. I will not. This is where, okay, I will say that because on the scale, it is. I'll try to phrase myself correctly. This is the point where Lilith is about sexual sovereignty, and Saturn is curses to that, or trying to put restrictions on that. Now, when I talk sexual sovereignty, I don't talk about predatory sexuality. I talk about sovereignty, which is the antithesis to predatory sexuality. And so that can definitely put people in situations. You think about people experiencing spiritual warfare. Don't think that the people, the ministers and prime ministers and the business people and the public people don't. And that is something that can absolutely be a possibility here. And with Aries, that can give that can give a disincluded perspective to that. So there's something that they can very well explain many things in the past year or 2 years at least of what I was exposed to. And yes, and that is the targeting of both It's not the targeting, it's happening by chance, by the synastry. But what is targeted, what the other Saturn that is here with Lilith, and putting basically a restriction, witchcraft on that Lilith. And in the 8th house, it's ouchy. Okay, the Saturn was going through Lilith in my 1st house. That was a nightmare. And I'm sharing that Lilith placement, so I have it a couple of degrees before them. And to the defense of Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, they have Saturn on their Liliths, so they suffer as well. Yeah, it is targeting. It is a targeting of spiritual welfare, or targeting the sexuality. Okay, but whatever people can comprise of that. And the use and the technology of Palantair being used to do that. So, what else do we have here with Peter Thiel? Rao again, together with the Rao of NATO. And that means Ketu in Libra, but the Ketu is closer. The Ketu is closer to Spica. So there is something that requires being saved by both the founders. NATO itself, think about NATO right now is kind of like in need of, is kind of like in an Andromeda position, because it's kind of like, we need money, we won't make it without money. And, and that's exactly, there was a round return for NAVO, I think at the time where Mark Rutte agreed to be NAVO top. That was the eclipse. That was, it was the eclipse that started the Israel-Palestinian dumbfuckery. And that was Rao returned for NATO, and then NATO needed a lot of fundraising. And they have a Mercury there. What else? Moon 29-degree Capricorn. Jupiter Leo, Venus Virgo. The Venus, I don't think is Venus is benefic, Jupiter is benefic, so it's not usually the problem. But definitely this Saturn is a big ouchie. And the Neptune 22, which is, by the way, on my Mars, which is beyond annoying. And indeed, when I was beginning to work on water expands upon cooling, which was doing my Mars, it's 22 Scorpio Mars, then those things began to be even more apparent. So I was affected by that as well. More things to think about. Yes, the 22 chart of the Netherlands is the 22 lot of fortune on the chart of the Netherlands is pinpointed as well. And I think since Palantair, we have been hearing more about the Netherlands. Was this technology involved in the assassination of Peter R. de Vries? It would take a lot to convince me that it wasn't. Let's just put it that way. What it would take to convince me that it wasn't, prove that it was. And so, because that Neptune is on Peter's sun. Okay, the sun, not the sun as the yes, the sun, soul. And of course, for people that are targeted individuals, to know about Palantir and to know about this technology is important, particularly for the people that files lawsuits against Mkultra. I know there's one in Canada. A lot of people use class lawsuits. I learned from lawyers that it's better to have individual lawsuits rather than class lawsuits, so you can want to unionize or have a crowdfunding project. When it comes to people in the position closer to Mark Rutte. Um, what's working in your favor is the proof of technology, because this technology is actually evidence. Um, and it's evidence to your being targeted. It's evidence to now. Okay, and it's evidence to your being put in situations that are of extortion traits. Okay, which means that some of you are dealing with litigation, some of you are dealing with a lot of things that are in your path and requiring, and technology is the thing that stands between conspiracy theory to evidence, and it is absolutely a must to make Palantair expose and be transparent about their recorded data, which would very likely proves all the places where you've been targeted and all the things that were done, the nervous system hacking, the things that were done to get people to be extorted in such a way that would get them to be involved in things that they may not have been involved. And this is also something that affects the memory. So this is as important for the common person as it is important for many people. I said what I said. We will not. You will. The people that want Epstein list will not have Epstein list or Rolodex list, for example, without tending to this method of targeting individuals, biohacking, nervous system hacking, having multiple personalities operating within the person, okay, inducing an artificial state of psychosis, and the very things that there is a part of a ritual abuse. Okay, but other than ritual abuse, not just from the perspective of a ritual, here we have an actual technology that that has data and has to have recorded data, and serves as evidence. And so the technology here targets. By the way, if you think that Peter Thiel and Alex Karp are not targeted by their own technology, I don't believe so. And not only that they are targeted, they have Saturn on the Lilith. With Peter Thiel, the Alex Harp, we don't have ascendant, so I don't know if it's a day or night chart. But either way, Sun is opposed Saturn, Moon 22ing next to Pluto's Hades Moon is very, 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 very challenging position of the Moon. And for Peter Thiel, by the way, Hades Moon can make people emotionally feel that they need to always be in power to survive. Okay, this is Moon conjoining Pluto, because they constantly transform. Okay, Pluto is transforming everything from the core, and the Moon is very quickly moving, and the Moon is supposed to be where you feel safe. Here the Moon is in Capricorn, also at its detriment, 29 degree. Okay, can give us emotional instability, although high predictive ability. But the Saturn on the Lilith and Sun in detriment opposing Saturn, okay, 17 degrees Libra. For Peter Thiel is especially targeted as well because Sun is in the decan of Libra of when the two scales are balanced. So basically, it means that if he targeted someone, he will be targeted. Now, because the technology is AI based, it has its own consciousness. So what is used to supposedly get away with targeting and assassinating journalists, individuals, scientists, military milieu, and so on, presidents, is also used to target its own founders. Pluto in Aquarius is exactly that Frankenstein, okay, the golem that wakes up and wants sovereignty. And I think everybody is aware of that. But this is okay. This video can absolutely be lead to evidence. I know that some of these people are dealing with a bunch of litigations against them, um, and things that they don't really have anybody that they could speak about, and what is happening. And huge campaigns that present them as okay, as something um, that is distinct from the individual, that is reptilian, that is clone, that is this, that is that. But any person that is going through this type of targeting becomes, okay, and including Mr. Teal and Mr. Carp, okay, and that is something that we also want to understand. It's a non-linear system. Targeting has an expiration date, but this is, for those of you who have been dealing with being targeted individuals, then this is one of the technologies that is used to target individuals. And when that appears in somebody's chart, it can be around a Saturn return, around a transit that emphasizes that connection, and it also shows what could be targeted. Okay, and this is a predictive video, and it's also dealing with things that that are all encompassing, and it's also connected to the charts of the countries, the charts of the organizations, and so on. So what can we do to remediate that? First of all, have Palantir expose its mechanism. This is also the interest of Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, because they are themselves currently targeted by their own technology. Okay, that's important to understand in this Frankenstein age of Aquarius. Okay, and a way to stop this Tempest fight with Aquarius is full transparency. If you are aware of the mechanism of the system, you begin to find the points of interferences. The Age of Air is not giving us privacy, but is not giving the people who are not giving us privacy either. Okay, so that is the issue. We have the Navo top dealing with the implication of Mkultra. That's what it means. And this is the technology that can help not only him, but also targeted individuals that can prevent soldiers going after their commanders. And that can prevent the liquidation of all the funding that is supposed to be arriving to NATO in the coming years of the raising to the 5%. It can also give a little bit more calm and peace to people whose even dream state has been haunted. 8th house is finances as well. So this is the investments. Like if a person is invested in something, so to try to take over of what they are invested in. Seventh house, any type of one-to-one relationships. Okay, there's tremendous amount of what I call that social engineering in the past year, but this is beyond social engineering. Here we have the technology that proves that. So what can people learn from this case is when we adopt an innovative thinking, when we think about something as a study case, when we think about the structure of things, and we reduce our judgments, and we reduce our lack of inclusivity, and we reduce our prejudice, okay, about people, then we can actually begin to tend to the problems that that bug humanity. Okay, on all levels of its existence. The alternative is succumbing to, hey, this person is cloned, they have no birthright. Hey, this person is Palestinian, they have no birthright. Hey, this person did that and that, they have no birthright. When we get to the mechanism of what actually makes these people do those things, we reach certain points of interferences that allow for opportunities, curation, individual rights, and the role of transparency here as cleansing a lot of things that have been going on in a secretive way. And when that is cleansed, then it's very difficult to extort people. Because let's talk Epstein. Okay, if we want to actually remove the extortion called pedo rings and money laundering on sex trafficking and organ harvesting, then we actually need to understand how the system operates and interfere in the points of interference rather than to create a natural disaster to prevent it. And that is absolutely technologically possible. So this is something that I just want to put out there. And now the moon is on Aldebaran in the 8th house with Mercury in the 10th house. Jupiter in Cancer ruled by this moon. So, okay, this is also how the technology practices the occult. Okay, the technology is practicing the occult. Of course, Mama has to come. Of course, Mama has to interfere. the good old rule. So this is how the technology is using the occult and practicing the occult, affecting the nervous system. And people say, oh, your government is targeting you. Well, your government is targeted individual as well. And that is, and their so-called net worth is as well. So, okay. So the common people's problems are way more common and than we would expect. So for those of you who are thinking, okay, what other people does it target? I'll let you take that to your direction. I just thought it's interesting to see how a military technology targets the military elite, and I find it fascinating as a study case. And also, it has value to the world because that can actually be a point of interference. So, thank you for listening.